what you are saying online on our question today. What do you think is likely to undermine Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy plan? What do you think is likely to undermine Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy plan is the question that we are asking this morning. We have Douglas who says, hatuwezi kuwa tunapiga kura every year for some selfish leaders. Sasa ni referendum na tulipiga kura juzi. That's what somebody says. Odhiambo asks, what legacy? All right. We have Chanje who says legacy would be stealing of elections, ICC handshake and corruption. He has got nothing to show off. Even the most iconic project, SGR, was Mwai Kibaki's project. Well, keep your comments coming. We'll be tackling that on Political Point today. What are the likely threats to Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy plan? And we'll be taking some of those comments as we go along. But for now, we'd like to look at the dailies. A quick introduction of the guests that we have in studio. And to my extreme left, we are joined by Barack Muluka, who is the Secretary General for ANC. Thank you for joining us, sir. We also have Honorable Catherine Warugoro, who is a woman rep for Laikipia. Thank you for joining us. Last but not least, Karanja Kabage, who is an advocate. Sir, thank you for joining us. And we go straight to the dailies and start off with the Standard, where we have a headline, why EACC is after Balala. Now, Balala excused from the session with anti-graft detectives probing a deal of 100 million shillings payout, but official papers trail shows that he will be questioned. And the questions that he needs to answer is, one, why he was in constant communication with the organizers of that particular meeting, yet he was not the official gatekeeper for the monies. Secondly, there was money that was withdrawn, an amount in millions, which was withdrawn in cash, and they would like to know what was happening. Karanja Kabage, maybe from a legal perspective, your views on this and the fact that we still have to be having
Well, I think I presume it is within the purview and the mandate of the Ethics and AntiCorruption Commission to deal with issues of maybe perceived or real impropriety as far as expenditures of government resources are concerned. And I think it's too early right now to make any informed decision or conclusion, given that the fact the matter is at a very early stage. And I think what probably we are seeing is heightened concern and sensitivity by everybody in view of the environment in which we are in, where matters corruption is the elephant in the room as far as the nation is concerned. And there is nothing wrong in holding cabinet secretaries or permanent secretaries or principal secretaries for that matter to account. Because you see, once you hold a public office, one of the most important recognition is that you are accountable to the public. There's nothing private. Matters of management or public resources or public offices must of necessity have the focus. And that's why we have created bodies like DCI, Director of Public Prosecution, we have EACC, and monitoring and evaluation units within the ministries and government.
All right.
So and that's my perspective.
Okay, Kate, your thoughts on this, and especially the fact that the government seems to be consistent in its promise to fight corruption.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning, and big honor to be with Barack Muluka here, Secretary General ANC, and Advocate Karanja. So my point is very clear that in this country, it only happens in this country that you are a suspect and you are clean until proven guilty. So as it is, you're only speculating, and these are graft charges and allegations which are leveled against CS Balala. But as it is, and even with the conversation which is about to come thereafter, I wish to state there was a time when the president himself, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, had to tell off some of his cabinet secretaries, the likes of Engineer Kamau, the likes of Charity Ngilu, and also President Kibaki, also in his time, during the Anglo-Rising scandal. You saw the likes of Chris Murungaru, and he had to leave. and the current governor of Meru County. So looking at it, I want to say that we are very much interested, and as a parliamentarian, and also as we are charged to be playing oversight role on the cabinet secretaries, will be keen to see how soon this matter is going to be expedited, so that we get to the bottom line of this matter. But I must say it's very long, because cabinet secretaries are policy makers, and the PS who is in charge of this docket ought to have done their work, and that would include them checking and thoroughly making sure that public resources do not go to waste.
Absolutely. All right, Barack Muluka, your thoughts on that? And maybe as you also come in, just to compare and contrast, we have Kenyans feeling that sometimes there's a lot of drama surrounding the arrest, but when it comes to convictions, there is a bit of a lull there. The Daily Nation's headline, maybe just to combine the two, Britain leaves jail, but Chicken Gate suspects still free. We see in other jurisdictions, people who are accused of certain things have already done their time. He has spent his 3 years in jail, whereas in Kenya, we still going around the arrests, but things never seem to get to a conclusion.
Yes, thank you very much again for hosting me on this show. Now, we have got to distinguish between what you may call optics, gimmicks, and rhetoric on the one hand, and concrete action on the other hand. And Chicken Gate is a pure case in point because it involved people within the electoral authority in this country and suppliers in the United Kingdom. And we know that those in the United Kingdom it, and it's one of the things that we would seem to want to wish away. When you look at corruption in this country, and every week, almost every day, we are waking up to revelations of billions of shillings that have been virtually stolen by servant. You can call it theft by servant, that which we call corruption in this country. And it does appear that being a thief is one of the benefits that you get out of being a senior state officer. And one would like to see that we bring some of these things to conclusion. It cannot just be hearsay, it cannot just be allegations about virtually everyone. One would want to see something concrete emerging at the end of the tunnel.
All right. Karanja Kabage, what do you see as the impediment that stops us from getting most of these cases to a conclusion? Arrests have been made, and it's not the first time. Even previous authorities have arrested, but we never seem to get to the bottom, especially of certain big cases like, Chicken Gate. You've got the likes of Anglo Leasing, still having nobody responsible or found culpable.
Well, let's look at the entire what we call the criminal justice system in our country. We have a very serious capacity problem to begin with. And the capacity is in two forms. The prosecution of alleged perpetrators of crime, they have a very big challenge, because when you want to prosecute a case successfully, you must make sure that you have your evidence intact and present your matter in court. And when you present the matter to court, there will be adversarial action taking place, where you have the defense arguing against and the prosecution arguing for conviction. Now, when you analyze how that happens in this country, there is such a slow movement of matters in court. Adjournment is one of those things where either the defense or the prosecution seeks from the judge to adjourn a matter, and therefore things don't move. So we have a huge burden of delays as far as matters in our courts are concerned. And this is a very big cause for worry, because as I said, there is a capacity deficit or deficiency in the prosecution. There is also a capacity deficit in the judiciary. And when those things are happening, we have a big problem. For example, let me tell you, proceedings in our court, you still have judges and magistrates handwriting evidence or proceedings in the court. That should be a thing of the past. There should be no issue of a judge sitting down and writing. The judge's role is to listen to the evidence that is being brought before the court, and the proceedings should be, there should be a recording of it, so that by the end of the day, the judge doesn't have to worry about writing. But now, when you are a judge in this country, or a magistrate in this country, we still have a problem because we have not provided for means of having recording or the proceedings in the court. That's a very big capacity deficit, as far as I'm concerned. The second one is there seems to be there seems to be a delay, and that delay becomes almost a norm in this country. And that's why we talk about justice delayed is justice denied. Now, in our country, you find that we put a lot of people in the court process for processing, but the matter sticks there. Now, we also have got the bail in our country. The Constitution provides for one to be given bail and to wait for the matter to take their time. Look at the case of Goldenberg. There are some people who are today fathers who are not born during the time of Goldenberg. The same thing with even Anglo.
And I guess capacity is something that needs to be addressed. But then the question, of course, then remains whether some of that capacity is by design, whether it is something that is intentional, and also the fact that we also have people that use the courts to almost, clean themselves out, because there is the question of double jeopardy, where you cannot be tried twice. So if you go to court and you're let free, then you cannot be tried on that same issue again. But I guess that's a, excuse me, a story that we can go on and on and on about. But I want us to look at something else. And I'd like to hear from you, Kate, in regards to the nurses' strike. They say that it's still on. Strike is still on, declare Stop Nurses Union official. This is on page 8 of the Standard, despite the president making it very clear that they must go back to work. Now, from a county level, where exactly are we getting stuck?
Well, I first of all wish to comment on the judiciary, because I sit in Parliament, and I must comment that the judiciary arm of the government, or that arm of government, is underfunded. And that is why you hear Wakili talk about system issues and the fact that these guys are still analog. When KTN switched to digital transmission, our courts are still very analog. And for that reason, they really make everything and make everybody stuck. Now, when you talk about corruption in this country, I just wish to mention on a very light way that our courts are very political. They're more political than our political parties themselves. Because politicians, they have their accomplices and their partners in crime right inside our courts. And for that reason, you realize these cases goes nowhere. The adjournments, the bails and everything, they always tend to come to try to exonerate somebody from certain allegations. And for that matter, I think I look forward to see a more strengthened judiciary, funded, and that we pay them, remunerate them properly, and that we try to give them what you call a service charter. Because as it is, nobody would predict how long would a small petty case, a petty offender like somebody, Makanga, ametoa raia on the wrong side of the road, or without necessarily a bus stop, how much time this should take before the judgment comes. So for this case, I think we have talked about service delivery charter in any other arm of the government, and therefore we also look forward to seeing the judiciary.
When you say they're political, are you saying that they're political to an extent that they go against the law? Yes,
we have seen certain kind of judges, and I must thank the president of the judiciary, Justice Maraga, because of the current transfers he made with his officers, and that would only tell you there's a certain judge, if you appear before a certain court, you expect the kind of ruling. You can actually predict what they are likely to give as their ruling. So in this matter, I think they need to allow politicians, let them allow us to do the politics, and they must also not dance to our tunes. They need to remain very firm so that they safeguard this country, because they are the ones who will crack the whip on criminals and crack the whip on corruption deals. Now, back to the issue of the county governments. I served in the County Assembly of Laikipia as a nominated MC from the year 2013 to the year 2017. And I must say that the county governments have inherited so many members of staff. And this now, with the issue of nurses in this matter, it has not been addressed. The first county government and now the second county government, we are still undergoing this process. I must thank the people of Laikipia and our nurses because they are not on the streets on strike, but I must say the president has clearly directed that they need to return to work as the Council of Governors look for a permanent solution towards the salary reviews and the increment which they are looking for. But as it is, we need to bring facts on the table. At this country, we do not have money as things are. We are talking about Agenda 4, we are talking about everything, but we must agree we can achieve these things gradually, but we cannot get spontaneous result and incremental salaries at this month, at this time, and at this minute. And then again, we've been called to serve. I believe nursing and any other majority of our careers is about calling.
Maybe if we use Laikipia as a case study, what is it that Laikipia has done to ensure that their nurses are not on strike when the rest are going on strike?
I must commend the governor and also his team because he has been with an ongoing conversation with these people. They didn't just wait until the last minute when the nurses were giving ultimatums that they would go on strike. And I must say that we have a number of governors who their business is continuing on seeking consultants and doing funny things which are actually not enshrined on fourth schedule in the Constitution, but they are busy diverting resources to other unnecessary things. And you know, you cannot afford, these people are protected by the Constitution and they are protected by the labor movement. You cannot wake up one morning and a certain deal and agreement was sealed between the union and the government and then you disown it. There must be conversation in terms of how long do you need and what does it take for you to implement the salary increment agreement.
All right. Yeah. Barak, do you think that the nurses strike, as an example, is purely just a lack of leadership? Because there are some counties, like she mentions, in Laikipia, where the nurses are working. There are other counties where they have gone on strike, and their reason is because of a dishonored MOU.
It is indeed absence of leadership, and I would say all the way from the very top. Because you cannot possibly be talking about universal health care as one of your biggest points of focus, and you're talking about a legacy, which I believe we will be talking about a little later. And the health sector is in a shambles. You're not able to honor a basic agreement which your government has reached with a segment of the workforce. The tragedy with the nurses strike is basically that we are not being honest. We are talking about a dishonest government here that entered into an agreement that was signed and sealed with the nurses. And we are behaving as if the nurses are asking for something new. They are not. And if they are not asking for something new, what you need to do, if you do not have the capacity, is to sit down with them and work out a new schedule of payment. That is not being done. You are seeing instead an intransigent government that is talking down at the nurses and their leaders, and telling them things like, we are going to sack you. What is the value proposition in an industrial agreement if you just turn your back to it? And this is not anything new. It is something that we have seen in the education sector, that an agreement that was signed in 1997, very many years ago, has continued to trouble us up to this moment, with the teachers taking now this permutation and then taking a different permutation. We need to be very honest. And finally, and with the most profound respect to my co-panelist here, who is an honorable legislator, the legislators in this country do not have the moral high ground on which to stand and comment on other people's remunerations, because they are the only category of people in Kenya who sit down and decide on what they should be paid, and they are able to arm twist even the president himself and say we are not going to pass bill this and bill that.
I think you're dishonest.
Yeah, I'm not dishonest. It is a statement of fact. The whole country there knows. And the whole country can look at Mheshimiwa Waruguru.
That's a perception.
And they can look at me and they can tell who is dishonest here. Do the nurses determine what their salaries, their remuneration packages are? No. Do the legislators determine that? Do they threaten the SRC? Do they deny the judiciary?
Right. I'd like to give her a chance to respond to that. Kate?
Thank you, Baraka. With all respect, I just want to remind you that we have an independent commission by the name Salaries and Remuneration Commission. And for that matter, any public officer salary is in the public limelight. I don't think there is any person who have appeared before any court of law in this country citing that they're intimidated or they're threatened by parliamentarians so that they increase their salaries. I'm a witness during the fundraising for the Bible Society and in the quest to translating a Bible, a good Bible, into vernacular languages. The president had a candid conversation with the clergy in that meeting, and the deputy president was there. And they were talking of members of parliament are busy trying to come up with a bill so that they increase their salaries. And I think it's not true. And we ended up giving a copy of the same bill.
So the president lied.
Let me finish.
Since I've lied, the president also lied.
You're free to just give your comments, and maybe I'm also given an opportunity to respond. But my point is one. I don't know whether Barack Muluka has a copy of the parliamentary service bill which he's debating about here, because I've said again, public servants and public officers, their salaries are public, and I've not seen anybody from the Saraserem Commission, not Saraserem, but Salaries and Remuneration Commission appear before any court of law citing that parliamentarians have increased their salaries. And number three, I think the only thing which maybe is making Barack feel like members of parliament are more privileged than the nurses or any other person is around house allowances. Members of parliament have been talking about house allowances, and it's a debate which actually have not even come to that reading in parliament. So this is a perception, and majority of these people, he is a party sponsor in the ANC Secretary General. I sit with his members of parliament in the parliament, and when you listen to them, I have not seen members of parliament from me, ANC, come out and say, our Secretary General have directed us to shoot down any bill or any kind of debate which is coming on the floor of the House, which seeks us to enjoy more salaries than anybody. I think it's very clear. This is in the public.
Karanja Kabagi, you want to be a lawyer and arbitrate here?
Well, I think it's good to have the discourse and that we are having at the moment. But let me put it this way. You see, I am an employer, and I'll tell you one thing. You know, the members of parliament in our country, and even the MCAs, the problem is never the salary. And for that, I'll defend Mheshimiwa here. On the other hand, I'll take it back from her. The biggest problem of our expenditure is in what is called benefits and allowances. But what people don't realize, whether you are talking about salary or you are talking allowances, the whole thing goes to feed into the budget. What people have not done is to unpack the exact costs of a member of parliament. The exact cost of a member of parliament, whether you are talking about a senator or a member of the National Assembly, it is horrendously very high. But when you look at the word salary, all right, there, Mheshimiwa Kate is right. But Barack is right in saying that what we have in terms of what is the takeaway, and the takeaway comes from the national budget. And that is where there is a disproportionate expenditure. I can tell you, no member of parliament spends less than 2.75 million in a month. In a month.
Mike, national government, the total budget, the National Assembly takes only 3%.
No, I'm talking about...
I think we need to have a conversation on the three arms of the government.
Okay.
Right? So that doesn't look like the people who are carrying everything is as if we are the China debts.
Allow him to just finish, then I'll give you a chance. Just finish, because we need to now get to the other segment.
You get what... And I'm talking about talking very candidly with a member of parliament who is in the second term. And he analyzed for me, including the guards they have, the offices, the officers, and our allowances. It's incredible. But when you talk about salaries, then it's very easy for you to say, oh,
For them
the
to get away.
Salaries and Remuneration Commission.
Kate, are you being dishonest? Because when it's salaries, then it might be true that they're within a certain reason, but when it comes to allowances,
it's the bottom line,
I think the matter which was
brought up is what goes
by
to
my
the
brother, the Secretary General ANC, who is also a sponsor of members
Yes,
of
indeed.
Parliament in the National Assembly.
That doesn't make it right.
He talked about salaries, all right? He talked about
remuneration.
Salaries. And then Wakili now is bringing on board questions of allowances and other benefits which are entitled to
I think what we're talking about here is income.
And why I'm saying this discussion is
expenditure.
insincere is because I'm saying the National Assembly only takes 3% of the total national
doesn't matter,
budget. And
percentages.
in this matter, you're talking about the Senate, you're talking about the National Assembly itself, and you're talking about our MCs across the country. I think if you need to have a sober debate around salaries, it must be taken, this conversation must be taken back to Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and then again to how the current constitution, the 2010 constitution, is framed.
All right, I'll have to take
so
a
I think
break.
the discussion is insincere. We need to look into the salaries of the cabinet secretaries, the PSs, the directors, and everybody on board, including political parties owners, like my brother Barack Muluka. He is paid, he earns big money
I'm not
because
paid a single
political
coin. You
parties
can go
are
and check.
funded in this
All
country.
right, I'm going to have to take a break right there. It is now just getting to 7 o'clock. And when we come back, we're going to be looking at potential threats to Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy. And maybe those are some of them when it comes to costs and how much is being paid